Hello, and welcome to another episode of In Progress. I'm, as always, your host, Julia Allen, and I'm so excited to be here tonight to talk to author Elle Bachman and her narrator for her audiobook, Sean Rhead. Sean is, I think, a little bit in transit, so we're hoping to have him come on in video soon, but thank you so much to both of you for being here. We'll start with Elle Bachman. Do you want to introduce yourselves and let us know what you write?
I am Elle Bachman. I write horror and urban fantasy. I have working on the series called the Blasphemer series, and I'm also a dark poet, and I have a couple of collections of those books out. All of my everythings and Melancholia are those.
Very exciting. It sounds like you keep very busy. And then, Sean, can you hear us? All right. I'll go ahead and introduce myself while Sean gets himself figured out. I am Julia. I write as J.K. Allen, as you hopefully know, because hopefully you've been watching our shows now. So I write urban fantasy and now horror as well. So I can say I'm a multi-genre writer myself. But yes, I'm very excited to be here. Joe, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Joe Compton. This is Going Now. You found us. Congratulations. Thank you so much for being here. I am also an author, soon to be multi-genre author as well, filmmaker, screenwriter, and all that fun stuff. Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation because I made an audiobook and it was an experience. So I'm kind of really looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say.
Yeah. And Sean, we have you. Welcome, welcome. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. My name is Sean Rhead. I am a elementary school music teacher by day and a performer in my off hours, and that includes audiobook narration. I have been narrating for 3 years now, and I've produced over 20 audiobooks at this point. And I'm very fortunate to be working with Lynn on this series. I believe 5 installments is what she said. The Blasphemer series. It's been a blast getting to collaborate on this long-term project.
Yeah, 20 books is very impressive, especially since you've been doing it for not as long as some other people out there. You said you've been doing it for 3 years now.
Yes. So fortunately, how I was able to rack up my credits so quickly was the first offer I got was for a 12-part novella series. So about 2 hours in audiobook length each. So I got
cool.
very, very fortunate there.
Awesome. So how did you guys meet, and how was working together as a duo on the Blasphemer series? Lynn, do you want to get started? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. The audio format for the Blasphemer series has been a long one. I've had narrators get sick and not be able to. I've had narrators drop out. So it was, some authors give up. I guess, really, really hard-headed. And I was just like, okay, just one more time, maybe 3 times term. And I put it up again, and I found Sean, and I liked what I was hearing him do, because he has a port of samples. And I sent it to him, and I sent it to a few other people, and he was the only one that really responded. And then after we started the project, the other ones were finally coming around. I'm like, too late,
Right, you already found someone awesome.
We gotta go. And I talked to him, and I told him, I'm like, look, this is a series. It's long. I would like to have somebody that could do all of it to keep with the flow. And I was really, really hoping. It was like every time I was like, I'm waiting for my hopes to just fall apart. He's like, no, we can do this as long as you're patient with me and I'm patient with you. And it worked out. And I'm really, really, really blessed that I found him to do this, which means you can't quit now. you're stuck with me
For another
for
4
this.
books at least, yeah.
At least
So
4 more, yeah.
right, Sean, how do you approach partnering up with an author?
Well, I come across all the work that I eventually do, um, kind of the same way through a search on ACX, and
Okay.
I audition for projects that really interest me. And Lynn mentioned, and I can attest to this. She is an urban fantasy author, and I am a huge fantasy fan. And I also am a big fan of a story of redemption, which is what Maxwell Demon was.
Mm,
So, reading the blurb that she had available at the time, I was like, "Oh, I'm very interested in this. I really would love to be a part of this." So I read through the manuscript and I look for um, little things, how to approach certain character voices or how to set certain moods. So it does take a little bit of prep work,
right.
but for an audition, not so extensively because time is the essence. The auditions are only open for as long as the author is looking for somebody.
Right,
So
right.
I like to be as timely as I possibly can be, with enough prep work going into it. And yes, like I said, I was absolutely drawn to the Blasphemer series from the beginning. I love the premise. I love the world building. I really
Mm,
enjoy the characters. And those three elements, premise, world building, and characters, are things that draw me in the most
right.
when it comes to such.
Right, because you have to bring life to words on the page. How do you decide like what the voices for each characters are? Like, is it just something that like they kind of, because a lot of authors will say that, characters spring to life in their head and kind of are their own person right away. Is that similar to you with their voices or?
Um, it definitely can be.
Hmm.
I think I kind of discovered this for myself, um, at some point in my journey. The wrong question to ask myself is, what voices do I give these characters? And
Mm,
instead, I should be asking, who are they? And the voice
gotcha.
kind of comes naturally. So in Maxwell Demon example, Maxwell and Thomas are two of the most prominent male characters, and there's a very slight shift in their voices. I think Maxwell sits a little bit lower,
Mm,
and Thomas a little bit higher up. So it doesn't really take as much planning, uh, in terms of the voices,
right.
but I put together a picture of who these characters are in my head, and I look at the dialogue, look at how they would say certain things. I look at the situations around them, and the voices kind of come naturally. Um,
Okay.
of course, with the exception of there are certainly some um, very obvious antagonistic characters in a lot of these types of works.
Hmm.
Um, which the voice is very easy to go over the top with, and that's also a lot of fun to do. Like, um,
Right.
like if he's coming across a really evil demon, it's very easy to just go Maxwell and
Right.
just get really be as evil as possible.
Yeah, just really perform the character out. That's awesome. Yeah. So Lynn, you do a lot. You said you do horror, you do urban fantasy, and you do poetry as well. But how did you get your start as a writer?
Well, I actually didn't really. Well, it's twofold. In the
Mhm.
industry, I actually started as a graphic artist,
Oh,
and
nice.
I had built up my own clientele. And then I caught the eye of Burning Willow Press, which sadly is no longer around.
Mm,
And I worked with them while maintaining my own clients. I made sure that was. Um, it was really important for me to continue to have my own clients and not just be exclusively to them.
mm,
And then and that's as far as the graphic design went. But along the line, I had other friends like Lindy Spencer, who's a writer. She does children's books and crime, thriller, mystery stuff. totally check her out if you're into those. She's really, really good. And she realized I could write because I just happened to say that I miss writing, and she's like, "Why aren't you writing?" And I was like,
Mhm.
"Question." It's just writing for me has always been a go-to when I'm sad or upset, and for a long time I didn't realize why. I just had voices of characters and worlds popping in my head, and when I was younger I actually wrote as a therapy, a coping. I couldn't control the world around me, so I was creating worlds I could control and
Right,
placing
right.
characters in these worlds that were going through things, or even writing simple things as a world where uh, they liked me. I would put myself in it,
Mhm,
which is
mhm.
very childlike, but I was a child doing it.
Right.
And over time, it just built and built and built. And then when I came across the indie industry, like I said, I went in as graphics, which helped me network and get to know the community while I was doing research. And do I go publisher? Do I go, straight indie? Do I hybrid? What do I do? And
Mhm.
eventually, I just found my way. And the Blasphemer series was indie, straight indie first, and then it found a publisher, and then now it's with Three Furies Press.
Mhm.
And it just you just find your way,
Right.
or at least I do. I'm also pretty stubborn, and when somebody says you should do this, I'm like, let me see what I can do on my own before I go do that.
Right.
I
Right.
uh, I personally love this book, the first one, Maxwell Demon. It was one of my top five books of 2020,
It's
and
good.
I think it's really cinematic. I think Sean was touching upon that a little bit, and it's really got this nice draw to it about how visual it is, and that makes it a lot easier to absorb something that's really really heavy, because it's heavy handed in a lot of respects, and there's a lot of battles and interesting things in there that I think are just phenomenally done, and uh,
Yes.
I just I I love that this became an audiobook because it has a real ear for being dramatic, and I think that's something that an audiobook should have. So
Damn it,
Mhm.
Joe, you
Yeah.
got time. Why'd you got to do that,
Oh, he's
Joe?
back. Okay. Yeah, no, it was a pleasure to work on. When I was helping to edit it, it was just fantastic to read. Just really great read. Um, so it looks like Sean's having a little bit of technical difficulties, which we apologize for, but we'll get him back on very shortly. In the meantime, we'll keep talking to Lynn. What is so? The theme of the show tonight is kind of emotions and emotive writing. So a big struggle that writers have is having enough emotion in their writing. So what are your tricks for emotive writing, and why is it so important? Because obviously you've done a great job of it in your book. So
Thank you. Well, I'm going to say now that if I ever need to cry or have a character, I'm going to be like, Joe complimented me live on air. I'm going to use that. Basically, I just have a toolbox, a mental toolbox. Um, and I, I think all writers have that toolbox. But for me, it's full of crap. As in, like, crap I've gone through, stuff that's upset me, and I may have a character going through something I will never experience, but the very root of that is maybe sadness. So, what
mhm.
would make me sad? How would I have reacted in that? And then I rewrite it in such a way, but also keeping a mental note of they are not me. So, I also have to add, like, maybe what fueled their sadness in that was a struggle of like not getting to see their loved one,
Right.
or like, for example, the best one I can share is in Harvest, the second book of the series. There's Dante Angelov. He, I have said before, is probably the closest one because I actually worked on him as a kid as a
Mm,
character.
mhm.
So for him, he has I'm trying to word it without spoiling the book. because I know that there's still not people that have read it. But
Mm.
he goes through trauma. And I have been pretty open that I have gone through trauma in my life, especially as a young person. And I use that emotion I felt of like not having control, or how did that one moment hurt me? What
Mm-hmm.
did it do to me? And then as a adult and healing from these things, I can also use that into developing the character. But then I also have to remember they're in a world, though it's considered urban fantasy because it's modern, but it's still fantasy elements. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like molding clay. You're working it. If this going to work? No, it's not going to work. Let's delete this paragraph. Let's go back. Just like if you're sculpting, if that arm didn't come out the way you wanted to, take it off, peel it down to the wire, and rebuild it up. So that's just kind of how I work it. I remember me and you having a conversation because you actually edited some of this for me, and you asked me about battle scenes, and I never really thought about it. And I remember telling you I go into it like a chessboard.
Mm. Yeah.
My dad was like a champion chess player in high school, and that was one of the few things he handed down to me was knowing how to play chess. So I've got black side, white side. There's the board. That's the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
I assign color to good, bad, and then I'm like, well, my characters fly, so I also have to think of it like 3D chess.
Right.
What character
Right.
can go up? How are they going to react? And it just builds and builds and builds. And God, is it exhausting? Because I have to keep in mind all these little things as I'm working at it. I think it's great that y'all smiled at that because y'all write and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But you build on it and you just kind of keep going. And when we're editing ourselves, before we would like hand it over to an editor or a publisher to go, please fix my mess. Um, we can even more break it down. Could
Mm-hmm.
I add more to the sentence? The editor said I needed to add this, and it just ends up polished. And then it it just ends up better in the end. But it starts with
Right.
a box of mess and trauma, and then it ends up being what Joe likes to talk about that makes me cry on air. Thanks.
Nothing wrong with shedding a tear or two. But yeah, that is such a great point that good writing a lot of times is rewriting. It's, it can be a mess in the drafts. We can have a mess, but then we edit it and that's where it really starts to shine. So Sean, I know you said you're a superhero teacher during the day. Oh no, you're a superhero teacher during the day, but how did you get your start as a performer and doing narrating in your free time?
So I didn't realize I wanted to do it at the time, but I grew up listening to Jim Dale's narration of the Harry Potter audiobooks. And
Mm.
that to me is the definitive way to experience that series. And I've, even before I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I got my start performing on stage. I even got my degree in performance, not education. Teaching something that I fell into. But how I got into narration specifically, well, I knew that I wanted to go into voiceover of any kind, and narration seemed like the most accessible because you really could do it from anywhere as long as you have your own home studio setup. So
Looks
Oh,
like we're having some internet
He's
connection
trying so
issues.
hard.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep the conversation going until he joins back in. But yeah, a lot of times we're inspired by other people, and so like he was saying, getting to the narration, hearing the narration of other people, um, can inspire you to want to do it yourself, especially if you have that background. Um, But yeah, what is your writing process like? Are you like a plotter or a pantser or?
I would like to say I'm a planner, but that would be a lie.
Okay.
I feel like that's like the proper like professional outline. I do like I was taught in English, but no. I get an idea, I'll scribble it down. I've got notebooks all over that you can't see with dialogue or a scene or like an idea, and I kind of wait it out. I'm the type that just can't force it.
Gotcha.
That's why it takes me so long. And I may have an idea of where I want to go. Like, here's a good start, but I really want to get to this ending. But what happens in between? And that's the story. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll start and see where it goes, and then I'll be like, oh, I had that idea that would work good. And then I'm more of like a frantic writer, I suppose. But I'll pull a notebook. I'll start pulling stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I ended up writing one of my poetry books, all of my everything. It's 19 years worth of my poetry because I ended up finding something. I'm like, oh my
Right.
god, I put this somewhere. Um, and I do try to do the outline,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of have an idea of where I want to go in my head, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time it don't work out that way. Um,
Right.
but it's just, I mean, I wrote a article once called the Purge Method. I didn't know it was a
Okay.
real thing. It was just a thing where I kept getting stuck, and I'm like, I know I need to have this here, and I know I need to have this here for this to make sense, and for
Mm-hmm.
the next part to make sense. And I just dumped everything in a word in Word. I just typed everything I wanted. It didn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense. It wasn't edited. It was not going to be anything anyone saw until somebody asked me, what do I do when I get stuck? And
Right.
then I started hearing it. I think it's up on horrortree.com, that article,
Okay.
called the Purging or something like that. I'll have to look it up. But and I have actual screenshots from raw Maxwell Demon,
Mm.
and how because I thought of a whole series to come after, but I'm not sure if I'm going to still do that right away, of how that fit. So it's like puzzle pieces for me. So it's
Right.
it's like you could not come in here and sit at my computer and be like, oh, this makes sense, because you'd be like, what is wrong with her? It's chaos and she needs to clean. But that's just how I work. I can't
Right.
help.
Right.
I'm just lucky to get paragraphs done and hand it over to Rebecca without her yelling at me.
Her and her cattle prod, right?
Well, I messaged her the other day and she's like, I was about to prod you. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
She's infamous for her cattle prod. Well, let's see if
But she's
Sean can
really,
get
really
back
good at what
in.
she does.
Yes, yes. Let's see if Sean's back in. I'll ask him another question because I'm fascinated by the narration stuff, but we'll give him a moment. Um, in the meantime, I love that you talk about it's chaos, but it works for you because I really like. I was talking earlier today with another writer, Jacob Brundle, on a
Yes.
TikTok live. Yes, hi Sean. We'll jump to a question for you. But how do you like how does it work for
Can
you
you hear me?
bringing words?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. How does it work for you bringing words to life? So you've got the words on the page, but you need to make them into real people for your audience. So what tricks do you put into doing that? I'm not sure if you can hear me. So
Well, so how I bring a story to life, well, I like to have uh, every, I like to motivation, everything that I am saying, whether it's dialogue or is. because everything.
Oh, geez. Yeah, we're just having a hard time with him today. What I was just going to say earlier is I was talking to Jacob Brundle, and we were talking about there's no one right way to write a novel or bring a story to life, but there's a right way for every person. So it's really important to find that method for yourself, that writing process that works for yourself. Um, but know that it doesn't have to match what everyone else is doing or even what one other person is doing, because it's like it's really going to be an individual experience for everyone. um, so yeah, it may be chaos for you, but if it works and it makes magic like Maxwell Demon, then you're not doing anything wrong.
Well, I hope not. I mean, I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
And what's hard for me is I'm like, I need to get this out. I know that this thing is like past deadline or whatever. And then I'll get an idea for something else. And then I'll be like, oh, I really want to work on that. And then I've noticed I'll find other ideas sliding into the series because it'll
Right.
make more sense. But it's just I don't know how I'll do it. It just do it. You
You just
know, I
it just
just
the
do what I
magic
can with what I
happens.
got.
Right.
I don't feel magical. I just feel like I'm going crazy slowly. But
Right.
the
But you're
end of
getting
it,
stories
I
out of
get it
it.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a
I
question.
mean, it's a marathon. It's not a
Sure,
sprint
Joe.
at all. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh no, you're good. You can keep going. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna say I was gonna ask because we're talking about emotive writing here,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of curious. As an agent of chaos and somebody who writes like that, when you're dealing with these scenes that are really powerfully emotionally driven, and there's a lot of them in Maxwell Demon. Uh, how much of that do you have to sit with and stay with for a while, or is that something that happens, or are you able to kind of disconnect yourself enough to move forward with more writing beyond that emotional text or that emotional moment that you have, or is it something that does sit with you for a while and you have to get through it?
Well, I mean, it just depends. Like, um, Maxwell, I started it. Like, it came out, I can't remember when it actually the first time came out. But I'd started writing it months prior in the year prior. And before it, I was working on Human Ouija, which came out originally on its own, but now it's in Little Lunacies as a collection with all my other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And Human Ouija, it exhausted me. I didn't know where to go. And so I was like, well, I have this idea about this reincarnation and I'll do that. And I got stuck because it wasn't that it was getting too hard emotionally. It was, you just get stuck.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing, wait a minute, this one, if I can grab from this one emotionally and put it in this one, that'll fix the problem in this one. And
Right.
so I did that. And as far as scenes that have made me pause, it's not, it's, how do I word this? Because, we're professional writers, we have to have words. Um, I would skip around. I'm doing that now in Ghosts. I'm getting stuck and I'm having to skip. Um, and for certain scenes, I, like I said, I pull from things I've dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The very end of Maxwell, I knew I did good
Mm-hmm.
because I was crying.
Right.
And I don't like to think of myself as somebody who cries like that. I'm sure people won't believe me because Joe made me cry. Thanks. But um, when I first wrote it, the last two chapters of it, I deleted them. I'm like, this is not where I want to go with this.
Mm-hmm.
I get that reaction a lot when I'm like, I deleted chapters. They're like, oh no, so much work. Yeah. But once I got it fixed, it didn't take me as long as it did to
Mm.
write the stuff deleted. But I often use music. I'll listen to music,
Right.
and I listened to a certain song that had gotten me emotional, for that last bit. I just put it on repeat and did it over and over. So music will also help me emotionally fuel the direction I want to go. Like for battle scenes, I would listen to music that would kind of pump me up. I listen to a lot of
Right.
cinematic soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes for battle scenes, I'll listen to like darker type music that's at I say keep saying cinema because that's what it's listed as on YouTube,
Right.
but
Right.
it's a darker feeling because I know I'm about to kill a bunch of characters that people aren't going to want me to kill, but they got to die to progress the story and to draw readers in.
Right.
Because nobody wants to fall in love with somebody and then them die.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone, with emotional writing and using them adverbs and all that, you are connecting on that level with a reader.
Right.
And even though they may not know what it's like to be the angel that fell out of the sky or whatever, they understand what it's like to fail.
Right.
To do something they believe in 100% and it didn't work out.
Right.
And if I can capture that emotion in something, I got them, because that'll draw you in. Not like I'm trying to purposely hurt anyone. I'm not.
Right.
I'm just trying to tell a story that's been driving me nuts, and if I don't, it's going to keep doing it. And I got to get it out.
Right.
So,
and if someone can relate to it even better, right?
but you see those memes of people going, "Oh, I love this character." Oh, they're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Sad reality for a reader. All right, Sean, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. We can hear you a lot better too. So you were talking about motivation to help bring characters to life on the page.
Yes.
Yes. Please continue.
Yeah. Yes. So, of course. So not just the motivation of each character and what they're going through, but what what is the scene, like what in the scene, what is happening in the scene, and how would reader feel about what is going on in the scene. So I like to choose my delivery based on how I would feel based on what's going on, and all the better to engage the listener. I like to think anything that's not just a monotonous delivery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
monotonous
yeah,
is
I really
definitely
like to pay attention to what's going on and
right.
how I would bring that to life,
Very cool. And I
and
wanted
how the reader would feel about
yes,
what's
yes. One
happening.
question that I really wanted to ask you is what did you wish authors knew while they were writing about narrating the book? I think there's a little delay in him hearing me.
Yeah, I think there's more than a delay now.
Oh no. All right. Well, we'll continue with Al Bachman in the meantime. Let's see. Knowing that your words were going to be narrated, did that change your writing, or did you just write freely and then attack the audiobook afterwards?
Well, when I started writing Maxwell, which was the very first thing I ever really published.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was one before that, but that was I it wasn't up long, and I deleted it. So it couldn't be gotten because I was like, that's not the step I want to take
Right.
as the first book. Because when you do your first book, that's your first step. Like, that's what you're going to be known as.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start switching genres up really quickly, you're going to lose people. They're going to be like, well,
Right.
do they write horror? Do they do, sci-fi? What are they doing? That is
Right.
something that is fine, but you're going to start losing people a little bit, just a little bit, because they're going to know you as that first, and they may like
Mhm.
that style first, and you might start losing them if you start going off. Um, and but by all means, do what you're going to do. But for me, I didn't want to be that first. So Maxwell was what I started with, and I wrote it. I never thought about audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know how to do any of that. I thought that was for traditional publishing when I first got in. I did not know that that was something available to us
Right.
as indies, because I was still learning the industry early on.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started seeing other people talking about it, I would message them. I'm like, how are you doing this? How are you getting book in hardback? How are you getting your book in audio? How are you getting, these links? Like, I didn't know. And I'm sure I annoyed way too many people. That's why most don't talk to me anymore, because I just asked a million questions. Because this was
Right.
stuff I couldn't find on my own. And plus, they would know exactly the answer. And instead of me looking through 50 million pages on Google and not get
Mm-hmm.
what I'm looking for, just go straight to the person. And then when I started realizing I could, that's when I'm like, that's great. That's the next step. And I tried to get Maxwell in, I guess, like a year after.
Okay.
That was about the time I started realizing, hey, this is something I can do, which is great because this industry is growing way bigger than I thought it was. Because I thought we could just do books. I'm like, that's
Mm-hmm.
enough for me. I didn't know I had more options.
Right.
But I also took in mind, if Maxwell goes, then all the ones that come after are gonna have to go. And that's why I started approaching people that would be willing to do a series, because I knew that this story was not going to be in one book.
Right. Right.
Nobody's going to want to sit down and read 3,000 pages of my mess. So I had to break it up. But I didn't go into it going, I need audiobook. I went into, I just want to get this out. See
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anyone likes it. I like it. It's something I would read.
Right.
So
Did
let's
it,
just see how this goes.
did it change the approach to Harvest and the subsequent books that you're going to do? And knowing now that you have an audio narrator and you have a voice to it, does it change anything for you going forward now?
No, not really. I'm still going at it as I'm just gonna get the book, because I'm I'm still a little like, he may get sick. He may get tired of waiting on me to get this out to him. Um, my hope is to get them all. Right now, he does have Harvest,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't gonna do Harvest because of the crap that was going on over there with the Audible,
Mm-hmm.
but I've paying attention, heard some stuff change, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead. He's also been willing to narrate other work for me. So for
Right.
me, it's more or less, let's just get the book done, because I don't want to jump too far ahead of myself, which I do. Like, you'll see a cover, and the book ain't even done yet. Because I get excited,
Well,
I want to share, but I got nothing to share. So I'm like, here's art. Look at art. It's
right.
pretty. It's good.
Anita does that too. She's mentioned on previous shows she's been on with us that she doesn't listen to music, but she inspires herself with covers and art and different things that she designs for each new story. So
Mhm.
that's
That's
very
kind of what I do.
fascinating. Yeah.
I'll listen to music while writing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm more than likely have already got a cover or got an idea or something, because it's like visual, audio. Let's get it done.
Right.
It helps me zone in, which is really difficult for me to do.
Mm-hmm.
But once I'm there, I'm in. But then it's easy to fall out of it. But as long as I've got my board, I guess,
Right. Your vision
my
board
head.
and your music to write to. Very cool. Yeah. Unfortunately, Sean is just not going to be able to join us tonight for the rest of the night. Anita mentioned Gremlins. I just think the veil is still too thin from Halloween, like something's
Maybe.
just disrupting us. But we want to thank him for being on the show while he could, and we really appreciate his time. I wanted to ask you, Lynn, what is your biggest influence while you're writing? Or like, where
Time.
does your, okay,
Time
this is very true. Yeah.
is time. Normally my biggest influence is like, do I have time?
Mm-hmm.
Am I approaching this the right way?
Right.
Because like I said, I deleted 2 chapters like it was nothing, and that was months of
Mm-hmm.
work. But it's also like me having a passion for that.
Yeah.
I did get a copy of Stephen King's On Writing book
Mm-hmm.
to help me. Only book I've ever read of his. So
Okay.
yeah, I was the Anne Rice kid growing up. My husband was the Stephen King guy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I did get his book, and I do know one thing that has helped that he talked about was quit while you still want to write. And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it works. If I want to do a scene, but I'm running out of time because, kids coming home, I got to get dinner going. Oh, yeah, I got to do those laundry, the dishes, whatever, because I work from home, so I do home stuff. Or my mom needs my help. I'll stop at a moment I know that I can get back into it because I'm going to keep thinking about it.
Right. That
I'm
whole
terrible about
process of stopping in the middle of a sentence or in the middle of a paragraph so you have something to sit down and know where you are.
Well, I don't think I could stop in the middle of a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I have ADD, but that to me horrifies me. I at least try to get the paragraph out because I
Gotcha.
know
Right.
once I get that out, then I can do the next thing. But the idea of stopping mid sentence,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that's bugging me so much. I never even thought about doing that.
Well, I am starting to write horror now, so I have to horrify people sometimes, right?
It works. Just do a whole book with that on every page. Mid sentences, stop. You will scare every editor, I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah, I would be
Where's this
shunned
going?
from the profession. Yeah, I would be kicked out. No more editing for Julia. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh.
I mean,
So,
I even get anxiety making sure, like, I know what I'm sending to editors like you
right.
is not the best. But I even have anxiety, like, are they going to judge me because my grammar wasn't on point? Because I know what y'all are doing. I've had the manuscript with all the red.
Right, right.
Y'all scare me. I think that will be my Halloween outfit next year is editor. Or like grammar Nazi.
Right,
Y'all
right.
are the best costume ever. Ooh,
Oh,
ooh.
yeah. But
I'm having a moment
there's
here.
no judgment from me because if anyone who knows me really well knows that like when I type out my texts and messages on the internet, like I'm so fast and my thumbs are so fat that they're like illegible. So like I don't judge because when I'm just like in normal Julia mode, I'm just like tonight has like a J and an N in it in the wrong spot though, and like it's just you have to know me to understand what I'm saying at any moment in a text. So no
I mean,
judgment
we've
from
talked
me.
back and forth in text, and I'm like, I'm sorry, and you're like, it doesn't matter.
Right, right. I'm pretty chill for the most part.
I will say though, if you start talking in half sentences, that's going to be like, okay, do I say something? Do I wait? We may never text again because I'll be waiting for you to finish the thought or something.
right, right. I'll only do that randomly to scare you in the middle of the night when it's like
Well,
2 in the morning,
thanks,
and I'll just be like, Joe, did
because I
you?
don't have enough nightmares as it is. Which is
Right.
actually where a lot of my story ideas come from, are my nightmares. That's what my
Oh,
nightmares have
okay.
been. Oh
So
yeah, I
so
like have
dreams
horrible.
inspire you. Yeah. That's really
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, I pull from everywhere. Notebooks,
Mhm.
dreams. A lot of my early interview questions when I was first getting interviewed were, "Where are you inspired by?" And I'd be like,
Mhm.
"Everything." And it's like most of my stuff comes from nightmares.
Right, right.
And it's just, and nightmares, from what I understand, are just like subconscious fears coming out. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just really fearful. I did a podcast that came out yesterday about I was interviewing a buddy of mine that's a paranormal investigator,
Okay.
and he was asking me different questions, and I was like, just scary movies don't scare me. I didn't even know I was writing horror until a buddy of mine online was like, this is horror, what are you doing? I was just writing stuff that I was getting out of my head, nightmares that bother me, or I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I haven't seen that somewhere. But it's just a lot of just getting it out.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I know that's a question you got asked a lot in the beginning, but I love to ask that question because to me, that's what fascinates me about people is like, where do you get your ideas from, the inspiration? Like, how do the characters come to you and things like that? So,
This is an example of a note on my desk
mm-hmm.
for
Love
writing.
it.
Makes no sense. Children's playground, phantom touches, and I know what each part of this goes to. But you're going to be like, what is she summoning? The devil? What is it? The devil lives here? What is this? What
The
was under
devil
that?
literally is in your notes. I love that. But that's
And
perfect for a
that's
horror writer.
and then I'll have like, what is that? It's a little head. And then I'll have
I love
like,
that though. My sister doodles when she writes too. She's a little doodler. Like when she's kind of stuck on an idea, she'll like start drawing stuff and while she's thinking about the story.
and then it's like, then I'll have a paragraph.
Right.
When I was a little girl, I dreamed a lot. Daydreaming never called me names or made me feel worthless. Giving myself fantastic futures gave me hope in a world I had barely got to know, but a violent and cruel one. Things would get better, and they did. And then right down here it says canvas and demons. And then on the back some doodle.
I love it though. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different, like, that's one of the best ways. Like, if you have writer's block, we were talking about this for Preptober, is doing something like with your hands, but not really thinking, like doodling is kind of a perfect way to work through ideas.
That's just like 3 pages of random that was
Right.
on the desk I moved to put the camera.
I'll write repetitive words sometimes. Like I'll just go, I am here, I am here, I am here, I am here, until it's like my fingers just on their own start to just write something else, and then
Yeah.
it works sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time. But then I have to remember to delete all those when I start writing stuff.
Right. I write little notes to myself when I'm writing, and I'm just like, do this with this scene, and I move on. And then sometimes my editor calls me and they're like, you left this note in here. Did you actually do it though?
For my second book, as you know, because you edited it, I was terrified because I had bracketed one spot where I told Rebecca that I wanted to do more research on it.
Right.
And then I realized that she goes, okay, it's going to be live in like 48 hours. And then I go, wait, what? Wait, we're done? Okay, so did you take out that bracket that was on page whatever? Because I didn't do any research. And she looked and it was gone. So luckily somebody caught it. But I was freaking out because I was like, holy crap, I left that bracket in there. I was supposed to research that part and I never did. But it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like I do that to myself too. And I'm just like, little brackets, do this. And then I'm like, oh, did I leave that in there or not? Yeah.
See, I guess I'm really lucky because that would drive me nuts if I did do that, but I don't. I tend to highlight in Word of where I've stopped. And then I'll unhighlight and then continue. But that paper, that's how I research. I'll take my notes and I'll be like, this one's I didn't. I've got so many freaking notebooks. My husband said that when I die, my heaven is Office Depot.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
Because it's just, I need to clean.
Well, they have sales all the time on notebooks and stuff at Staples, and I always hit them up. You know, the back to school specials.
That's my favorite time of the year.
That's my season. Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
it. I'm like,
highlighting too.
oh,
Yeah, Anita highlights too.
it's
That's
like my husband would be like, this notebook is for our son. He needs it. And I'm like, but I need it too.
right, right. Mama has
And then
needs.
I don't not use notebook music here. I know you need it. I'm like, thank you. Thank you so
Right. That's so sweet. I do have one last question for you. I know you talked about you read on writing, but what is your favorite writing advice to give to new authors or old authors who just need some advice?
don't give up. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've written some of this stuff. I even have um, advice, like the worst advice and the best advice I've ever been
Mm-hmm.
given. And my advice I give out to everyone is it gonna suck,
Mm-hmm.
but don't give up. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And I know a
Right.
lot of people, and I'm sure you know of people like this, come into being indie and they're like, it's easy, everyone can write. And then they get into
Mm-hmm.
it and they're like, I'm better than this author or this one who's been doing it longer than they've been alive, thinking that they're
Mm-hmm.
better than them. I'm like, where's your work?
Right.
Where's the proof that you're better than that person?
Mm-hmm.
Or, show me that you can do it. Where's your work? And they
Right.
haven't done anything yet. Or they'll come in and they think it's quick money.
Right.
Or everyone can write, and then their book isn't edited, it's not formatted. You can tell they did their stuff in like Paint Shop, but like with a doodle or
Mm-hmm.
GIMP or whatever, and it's not easy. It is
Right.
not a sprint, and not all of us have a ton of money. I'm sure we all want to be millionaires,
Right.
but we're not. We're struggling. Some of us are paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are just struggling and
It
don't
definitely is.
have the
Yeah.
funding.
It definitely is a long-term game. There's a reason why 20 books to 50K is such a big group, because they talk about it's not going to
Mhm.
happen necessarily on one book, but once you have a good backlog of books and you're, doing consistent sales on those, like, you can definitely make a difference that way.
I mean, even I've been in that group, and even us, all three of us have been doing it for different lengths of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I see these people, and they're making certain amount of monies in a year, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
how are you making that? Because I've been doing it X amount of time, and you just got started. Like, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And then I start like messaging, and what's your tips? What are your advice? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all still learning. It's all learning constantly.
Right.
This
Right.
industry's constantly changing. But the advice is just don't give up. It's gonna suck.
Right.
Network. That's super important.
Yeah, and
And
I think
keep
it's really
going.
important not to compare ourselves to other people as well, because, like I was talking about this with Jacob earlier, like, flowers are pretty, but so are Christmas lights, but they're completely different. You can't compare the two.
Mhm.
Different people have different strengths, different writing styles, have
Right.
different pros and cons. And so, like, just because one person has good luck their first year doesn't mean it's going to be sustained for a long period of time. And they
Right.
often say that, like, overnight successes are 10 years in the making,
Right.
so.
I hope that didn't come off like I was comparing myself. I'm just
Oh,
curious, like, what's
no.
their advice?
Yeah,
That's how I
no,
approach
no.
their
Yeah, there's some great advice in that group. I definitely recommend
advice.
checking out the files that are pinned, and seeing what they
Mhm.
say about, like, advertising and different things like that. That you can, different marketing tips that they give out. They have a ton of great advice. I was just saying for our audience that, like,
Yeah.
don't get caught up in the,
Mhm.
like, comparison game, because
Mhm.
everyone's journey is different, just like their writing
Mhm.
process, and there's a million ways up the mountain, and there's
I think
um
I think that would be the next biggest advice I'd give out is, um, you know, we are our worst critic. We can get in
yes,
our way.
yes,
Because I mean, I've been there where I'm like, God, how are they doing it? And
yeah,
not in a let's get some advice way.
right, right, not in
It's
a
it's
productive
not
way.
good to you mentally or
Mm-hmm.
emotionally if you're going into this jealous
Right,
or upset because I'm not selling like they're selling. It's you should approach it more in a positive manner of what can I learn from them.
right, right,
And that was something I had to learn because at first when I got into this, I was just like, what am I doing wrong? I have
right,
anxiety and depression that is fueled by my anxiety. So I was approaching it way wrong. And you
Right.
just have to go into it with a I'm going to constantly learn mindset. Like you
Yeah, that
said,
is
you
a great
look at the,
point.
read the
Yeah.
tip, read it,
Right.
research it. It's a
Right.
book. Read it.
Right. That is a fabulous note to end on. I did want to give you an opportunity to talk about anything new that's going on with you. I know you mentioned a podcast, and let our audience know where they can find you online if they want to learn more.
The best place is my website, lbachman.com.
Mm-hmm.
All my social media is there. I'm posting my podcast there too.
Oh,
Um,
wonderful.
I do, I do upload it on YouTube, and you can find it by looking my name, L. Bachman, up. Uh, the podcast is supposed to be another way to connect to people that can't always just sit and watch a video, but listen, like an audiobook.
Right.
So that's what I decided to start doing. It's got a lot of writing advice in the first 3 episodes, and then the fourth one kind of taps back into what I'm pretty much known for, which is horror. Because on the website, there's also monsters and things because I talk about monsters in my stories. So it's a way of
Mm.
sharing my knowledge. But the Halloween special came out yesterday. The podcast called The Dredge Podcast, and I interviewed a friend of mine that I have had for over 15 years, and he's a paranormal investigator, and he and his wife um, make dolls. They're called cherry monster cherry dolls, and he talks about how sometimes these dolls that they get are haunted.
Mm.
So we talked about that. We talked about some of these places he's gone here locally in Alabama, like the Children's Playground or Maple Hill Cemetery, which is actually the cemetery in front of the playground. But we talked about that, and the podcast is going to have a lot of different subjects. But right now, it's just writing advice, publishing advice, and then a really odd, scary one. But it's going
Awesome.
to continue. It's going to continue to grow. It just got started a few weeks ago. It was
Mm-hmm.
something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I just decided to do it on my own.
Awesome. So lbachman.com.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I am Julia Allen. I write as JK Allen. You can find me at hijinkswriter.com. Hijinkswriter on social media, except for TikTok. It's at JINNY and Tonic at Ginny and Tonic. Um, yeah, I don't really have too much to announce. I think Joe's having me on a show pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
think it's next week, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I've got it written down. I just don't know off the top of my head. So catch me there. And of course, in our next in progress for the special holiday month of December, I will be interviewing Joe himself. Ooh. And then Joe, do you have any announcements to make?
Yeah, real quickly, I just wanted to let everybody know I was a part of a group called the Speculative Fiction Academy, and they're an online academy based upon writing in speculative fiction. So they have different unique courses like how to write a werewolf, and not to make your vampire sparkle and things like that. But they also have business and writing classes, and I actually taught a class on screenwriting. So if you wanted
Oh,
to learn
nice.
how to be a screenwriter, I did a 10-week course there, and it's available now, and you can check it out. It's speculativefictionacademy.com, and go check them out and sign up for some classes and check it out, because I'm real proud of what we did there, and it's a really cool opportunity and place to go and grow. As Lynn was saying, you're always learning, and
Yes.
this is a really good chance to do that. So I'm real excited for that. And it is, you know what else it is? It's always what, Julia?
It's always time to go indie now. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month.